All right. I hope everyone is fine. I hope you're enjoying your day wherever you are. So I want us to look at the other part, which is MySQL introduction. We're not going to go into the much detail of MySQL. We're just going to look at a brief overview of it and how we can connect it with PHP so that at the end of the day we'll be able to get our form data from the HTML forms that we have validated with PHP, retrieve that information, store them in the database, and after storing it in the database, later on if we want to use it, we can come back and then fetch that particular information and go ahead and display it probably just on the database, on the HTML page, or use it for validating the user, like in the case of logging in. We go ahead and do that. So this is what we're going to look at. Just gonna give you a brief overview of MySQL. PHP, I'm sure you're already familiar with it. If not, you go back to and review whatever we had covered earlier. Now PHP is, MySQL is one of the databases that we're gonna use in this class, and it's one of the open source databases. Open source means it's free. You don't pay for it. You just go ahead and download it and start using it, but then you have to make sure that you give credit to the people who have created it. You give credit to the developers. You give credit to the companies. And also you have to go ahead and follow. There are some also limitations, maybe say here and there, that you have to go ahead and read the guidelines that they have listed on their website. So you can go ahead and visit their website and see what is there. Now if we put our information, say we have collected the username and then the password and maybe say other personal details of the users on our web page or on our website, and we want to persist that particular information, we want to store it for a longer period of time, then we need a data store. We need somewhere where we can put that particular data. We can put that particular information that we have collected from the users. Say for instance we are in an e-commerce business and we have products that we are selling. We have products in our online store that we are selling. We have also people who are coming to buy our products. Now these are the customers, and the customers comes in, they go ahead and make orders. So we need to make sure that we keep track of these products, we keep track of these customers, and we keep track of these orders. The other part of the employees, we're not going to look at it at the end of the day. So to do that, we are going to need a data store, and we need a persistent data store in this case. And that particular persistent data store is going to be a database. So one of them is what we're going to look at today, which is MySQL. So in MySQL, we're going to realize that the data which we have there are stored in terms of tables, are stored in terms of what we call objects, and those database objects are called tables. So a table is just basically a collection of these other data that we have. And then if you have ever worked with a table, like a normal table, you just go ahead and draw it. It has a row and column. The MySQL databases also have tables which are in that particular format. We have rows and then columns. So in our columns, we have the names of the fields, all the names of the different properties or the features or the attributes of our data that we are collecting. And then the rows now list the different items, the different entries of our data. So if we are talking about a product, we know that a product has a name, we know that a product has a price, and then maybe say we know that a product has some quantity which is remaining in store. So those names, the prices, and then the quantity, we shall keep them as the column names. Then the individual products that we have, say we have the PC, we have the phones, we have the microphones, etc. When we're putting them in the tables for products, we list them as rows. So that is the difference. At the end of the day, you're going to realize that using databases to store your information is really, really very important. And also the structuring itself is quite direct, it's quite clear, it's quite easy to understand. Why? Because when you look at a database, you're just going to find what we call tables, and these tables we can organize them, or maybe say put them in specific categories that we can have in any other point in time. I gave an example of an e-commerce business. An e-commerce business, in most cases, we're going to organize it around the products we have, around the customers that we have, around the orders that the customers are making, and maybe say around the promotions that we are having at the end of the day. So a table, let's go into a little bit detail of the table. As we have said earlier in the previous slide, that our databases is made up of tables. So in a database, you're going to have either one or more table at the end of the day, and each and every table is going to be having a name. An example of a table name can be like the customers table, where you're going to find information about your customers. It can be like the orders table, where you're going to find information about your orders that the customers had made. And then others can be like at the end of the day, you may have products also, which I've already given information about. So all the information we have in the table is going to be organized around those fields, and each and every record, each and every data, each and every row which we're going to have in our table is going to be a specific information about a particular data which we have in our table. An example is this one here. We have, assuming we have a table called persons, and each and every person, like me personally, I do have a last name, I do have a first name, I do have an address where I stay, and then the city where I'm found. So an example is maybe say these other names which I've given here. If one of this is your name, then sorry about that, I can go ahead and blur it up, but then it's just an example. So in this table, we have just about 3 records, or maybe say 3 data for each and every person that we have listed here. And each and every person has 3 different fields or 3 different properties that we use to characterize them or to describe them. They have a last name, they have a first name, they have an address, and the city where they stay in. So another term that you may want to be familiar with in databases is what we call a query. If I ask you for something, I'm requesting, or maybe say I'm asking you a question and you have to give me an answer, you have to give me a feedback. So a query in our database transaction, or maybe say our database interaction, it's like an answer, a question being asked. And this question, or maybe say a request, needs a feedback or needs an answer. So when you go and start working with MySQL, you're going to ask your database for a specific information. You're going to request your database for a particular record or information that you want. And at the end of the day, your database, your MySQL, has to return for you the result. And our result in this case will be in form of a result or a record set or a result set. And at a point, our result may be empty. The result set may be empty. That's in case we don't have any information in that particular table, or it will be having some information which we don't know at the moment. So an example of a syntax that you're going to use to request your database for some information is this one here. Now this line here asks our database, it tells the database, you first go to one of your table called person, and in that particular table you have called your person, retrieve for me, or maybe say get for me all the people, or maybe say all the information which is there, all the data which is there, but I just want the name, the first name of each and every people that you do have in that particular table, person only. Don't get me any other thing, but only the first name that I want in that particular table called person. So at the end of the day, the result set, or maybe say the record set that we are going to receive from the database is going to look something like this. This table here, it's not styled. By default, it's not styled. But here, if you wanted to be displayed like this in your website, then you have to go ahead and add a CSS for you. Yeah, and you already know how to add CSS to your website. So now that one was about MySQL, or maybe say the database, which we are going to look at. So how do we connect our database MySQL to PHP? How do we make sure that PHP communicates with my database, PHP communicates with my HTML, or maybe say my website? We have already seen how PHP can communicate with my website, but now we also want to see how PHP again can go ahead and communicate with my database, such that next time I want to retrieve some information from there, I can easily get it. So the first thing that we need to do is to make a connection between the PHP code, or maybe say in our PHP, to the database that we have. Your database has to be existing, and we are going to need that connection immediately before we start accessing any information from our database, because if we don't do that, then we are going to find an issue. So in PHP, they have defined for us a function called MySQLi connect, which takes in most of them. The information there is optional, or maybe say most of the parameters are optional, but it takes in the host name, which is where your database is running, the server in which your database is running. Secondly, it takes in the username and then the password. The username is for the person who is going to access your database, and then the password also needs to be for that particular person. Then the last one is the database name. We need the database name that we are going to connect to at the end of the day. So that's the general syntax of connecting to our SQL. So we use the PHP function called MySQLi connect, and MySQL connect at the end of the day is going to return for us an object. So if the connection is correct, or if we have everything at the number, I mean the password, the username, the database name that we have passed in, and the host is correct, then the connection is going to be successful. But if it's not correct, then we are going to get an error. So we can go ahead and display that particular error, and then we disconnect ourselves, or maybe say they exit the connection at the end of the day. So we, after calling the MySQLi connect, we have to go ahead and check if maybe say our connection was successful or not. If it wasn't successful, then we can go ahead and end that connection. Okay. In most cases, after you have connected to your database and then you have finished doing whatever you want to do, you have to go ahead and close that particular connection. We go ahead and close the connection using MySQLi close, but then we need to pass in the connection object that we had received earlier when we called MySQLi connect. And usually what it does is it just goes ahead and stop the connection. If maybe say you have not passed in that particular parameter, that is the MySQLi object that you got from the MySQLi connect, then the database which we had recently opened is the one that we are going to close. So if everything works on fine, then we are going to return a true. That is in case we were successfully we were able to close the connection successfully. If not, then we are going to fail in this case, and we shall get that false. Okay, good. So before we actually go ahead and put in data into our table, we need to first go ahead and create the table. Make sure the database is created. Make sure that the table is created with the columns that we expect. And once we have created that particular table, then we can go ahead and start adding information. So for this one, we are going to use PhpmyAdmin to create our table, to create our database. Then when it comes to inserting, we can go and insert it in our PHP code. But also I'm going to show you how to insert data from there, and then later on you'll see how it's done in PHP as well. So here, if we want to use our SQL commands to do the inserting of our data, we go ahead and use what we are calling the insert into command, or maybe say the insert into statement, which adds for us data in our table, or maybe say in our database table. So if we have a database table, then the syntax is simple. We just call the statement itself, then followed by the name of the database, the name of the table, and then we, in the bracket, the first bracket, we go ahead and pass the column names that we want to insert the data to. Then afterwards, we can go ahead and add the values, the information that we want to add into our database. Okay, so this is an assumption that we have a PHP code. So everything that we wanted to do, the upper one here assumes that we are first getting our connection variables, the information about our database that we want to connect to. So we get the host name, we get the username, we get the password, and then the name of my database. Then here on the third line, on this line here, we call MySQL connect, pass in our host name, pass in our username, and then the password, then they pass in our database name. And the result of the MySQL connect, we are going to store it in the con variable. So afterwards, we shall check the status of the con variable. If maybe say it is a false, then we are going to disconnect, or maybe say disconnect there and then display the error that we have received. But if it is correct, then we are going to continue to the next step, which is adding or inserting data into the table called myGuest. And then in that particular table, I have a column called first name, last name, and email. Then the values that I want to insert there is John Doe, and then John at email.com, at example.com. That's the email. All right, great. So now I'm going to run that query, the MySQL query. I remember what we called the query at the beginning. It's asking, or maybe say requesting, the database to perform particular task. Now here on this line, MySQL query is how we request the database. So it's a function in PHP which takes in the connection object which we have gotten from the MySQL connect. Then secondly is our SQL queries that we want to run against that particular database. So now the insert, if everything is perfect, it will return for us a true, or a Boolean result which is called true. And if it fails, it's going to return a false also. So here, if it's true, we're just going to say that we have created a new record. If it has failed, then we're going to display the error which is has failed with. Then we go ahead and close our connection to the database. So basically that's just a brief overview of how we can do this in how we can connect MySQL and then PHP code. So I want us to go ahead and try this one practically. And the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to, let me see where it is. Anyway, what I want us to do first is we need to create we're going to create a HTML table. A HTML page which allows users to register. And after doing the registration, we can create let's just create a page for registration. And this page, we are going to call it, how do we call it? Okay, we're going to give it just any name. So maybe before we actually do that, but yeah, let's just go ahead and create that. So I'm going to start here. We are going to create our registration page. We're just going to call it, maybe saying a registration. So I hope this one is visible. So we create a HTML code here. So doc type and say it's HTML. Okay. That's the type of the document that we're working with here. So we say HTML. I want to do something. I want this code to be highlighted so that it looks a little bit nicer. So to do this, let me first save my file. I'm going to go to Save As. Then in the, let's say in the C drive, I'll local this C and the XAMPP, then htdocs. We're using XAMPP. I'm going to put it in a folder called Web. So here I'm going to put a name register dot PHP. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to choose a file type. I'm using Notepad++ for this. I'm going to look for PHP file. It's this one here. Choose that. Then I say save, which highlights for me that, because Notepad knows what it is, so it can go ahead and highlight it for us. Okay, so okay, next we can go ahead and add our head section. So head, we first close it. I always prefer doing that. Then maybe just add a little bit of a meta tag, which will tell us the kind of character set that we're using. In this case, I add that attribute and I say we're using HTF8. Yeah, that should be good for us. And we close this. Should we add another thing? I think that is enough. Could have added like the viewport, but should we? Yeah, I think let's add the viewport so that we know which device it should turn its responsiveness to. So we cut the viewport there, and maybe say the content is going to be, let's say the width is gonna be the same as that of the device. So we have the device width there. Okay. Should we add scaling? Yeah, I think let's add the scaling as well. So initial scale, we're going to put it at let's put it at 1.0 as usual. That's basically the default. Then you can close this and come back here. Okay, then what else should we do? Okay, let's just come back here and add the title just of our page. And let's say it's a registration form. Okay. Close the title tag. And we come to the body section here. Create a body. First close the body. And then after that, let's just add a heading, just a small heading probably. I'm going to put everything in a container. Say let's use a div tag here, and we close our div tag in this case. And then let's add the first one is going to be just a heading. Just let's use a h2 will be better. So create your account. So we're gonna tell the user to do that. We close this. Okay, then what else should we add? I think that's gonna be enough. Let's just add our form. Now for the form, let's add the action attribute, which is going to be, let's first leave it blank for now. Then the method that we're going to use to submit this form whenever it's clicked can use post. In this case, we're going to change that for the action later. Then inside our form, I'm going to just add first name, last name, and then email. That's gonna be enough. Others will come in later if we want to add. So the first one is gonna be for the email. Should I put the email? No, let's put Oh, we have not closed our div. Well, okay. So here, let's add a label tag. A label tag is just going to display for us the name of the field, which here is going to be first name. Close this label. Then we need our input tags. So we're going to put in the input, we're going to use type text. Type, we put it text. And let's put a placeholder for now before we add that. So for the placeholder, we are going to have say enter. As the value, we're going to say enter your say first name. Okay, that should be enough. Then let's put a name attribute, which we are going to use later. We're going to use later for us to receive the input from the user. So the name attribute here, we're going to put it first name, something like that. Then we can close this. Anything else? I think that one should be enough. We can do the same thing. I'm just going to copy this and paste so that we save time. I'm going to do the same thing for my last name and then email. So for the last name, I'm going to put here last name, and here I'm gonna put email instead. And then for the here is gonna be last name, here is gonna be email. So instead of having first name here, I'm gonna put email. Then also here, instead of having first name, I'm gonna put last name. So I think that should be enough for my form. And maybe we just add now a button. Let's just add one button here for the what should our button be for? Should I put a register, or let's just add a button and then we say its type is going to be submit. And what we do next is anyway, let me just leave that for now. I wanted to do something else. Just say register. Okay, but how about we just use the input? Let's use the input type going to be submit, and the value we're going to put register. Okay, yeah, that should be enough. You can go ahead and close this. So when we save this and we go ahead and run it, we expect it to work the way we want. Let me first minimize this a little. Okay. All right, so this is what we want to work with. So we're going to create, we need a form. This is form here. We need to go ahead and we're going to create a table called, say, let's call student. Yeah. Let's go ahead and create a database first called, let's go back to XAMPP. My XAMPP is already running. If it's not running, this is how you do it. Go to your file explorer and choose local DC and go to XAMPP, then come down here and double click this, which this XAMPP tray should open for you your XAMPP control, which mine has already happened there. So what I want to be running, I want Apache to be running in this case, PA for PHP. Then I want also MySQL to be running. So both of these ones should be running. If not, then you click on this button, which is, it's going to be written start. Right now it's running, so it's saying stop. I'm going to click this button, PHP, this button here, MyAdmin, which is going to open for me a control section, or maybe saying the browser where I can access PhpMyAdmin from. So you click that particular button. Let me come back again. Click this button here on the line of Apache. Here you click the button admin. So once you click this button admin, it's going to open for you this page. Once you're on this page, let me first close this one here, we don't need it. Once you're on this page, we're going to come here and click on PhpMyAdmin. So you click on this, it's going to open for us PhpMyAdmin. This is the first time I'm going to open that. So what's gonna do is gonna take a little bit some time. But anyway, we can wait anyway. So as we wait for it to open, we're going to try to run our code there. So we come here and type localhost. Say localhost, add no port there, just click OK. So it takes me back here. But what I'm interested in, remember our folder here, inside the htdocs, we have saved a file inside here in a folder called web. So we're going to type that web. This dashboard here, which you are seeing, is basically this one here, this folder dashboard that you're seeing. So for us, we want it to point to this folder here called dashboard. So we come and change this from web to from dashboard to web. So here it's, and then later on we pass in the name of our file, or we just click on the file which we want to run. But since there is nothing there, if maybe say there was an index file here, whether it's index.html or index.php, it will display for us automatically. But since there's no index file here, we have to pass in the name of the file manually like this. So I say register.php and I press enter, which gives for me my forms. Now if you look at our form here, it's not styled. We don't have any CSS added to it. So maybe we can go back and style this. So we shall come back there. So this is our form. Now let's go back to PHP. This is what has been opened, PhpMyAdmin. So what we're gonna do here, I'm going to come down to, so this is where let me maximize this a little. So we have here, click on new when you want to create a database, a new database, because if your database is not listed amongst these ones here, then you don't have a database. So you click on new, and after clicking on new, you come and enter the name of your database, which for instance, this one here, I'm going to give it a name. Let me give it a name school, like that, school DB, or let's just say WebDB. So this WebDB, we click on create button. You can go ahead and change this, but then I'm going to leave it as default. So once it has already created, it will create for me a database here. Now it will ask me to create a new table. So I go ahead and start creating my table here. And first I'll give it the name of the table. And the name of my table that I want to give is, should I say person or student? Let's say student maybe. So I'm gonna say student, and the columns that we want, we're gonna have a ID 3. Okay, let's have 4 columns in this case. So it's gonna create for me a table with 4 columns. Now I can come and enter my names. So I'm gonna have ID here, and I say it's an integer, and I want it to be a primary key. First of all, I'm gonna say it's not null, and secondly, and I'll say it's an auto increment, which will automatically make it a primary key. Then others like first name, last name, we're gonna have first name like this, which we're going to put it as varchar, give it a value of 50 is gonna be fine. And then last name, I'm gonna say it's still a varchar, and 50 characters is gonna be good still. Then the email is last. Email is also gonna be a varchar, and I want to give it on a total characters of 50. This is these values that you're passing in this column of lengths of values is the total number of characters that you expect to be contained here. Say for instance, your first name. If the first name, if maybe say you have a name which has like 10 characters, 20 characters, then this one can still fit. But if your name has more than 50 characters, now this one won't be able to fit. So you have to go ahead and change this to something else. So here we can preview the SQL. This is the SQL which is creating for us that particular database. I mean the table in this database. So our database which we are using is WebDB. The table which we have created is this, and it's creating for us a column ID which is of type integer. It accepts integer values. Then first name, which is of type varchar, it accepts characters, a combination of different characters. Then last name also accepts a combination of different characters, even letters of alphabet, special characters, etc. That's why we have to give it varying characters of varchar. Close that. Now we click on save. Once you click on save, if everything is fine, we're going to get a success message here with our tables. So you see, this is our table. This is the structure. If you want to see our data, we come to the tab here for browse, which here it runs this command here, which we are going to see later, the SQL query which says select all from students. But if you just want to see the structure of our database, the type, and then whether it's a not null, which one, the number of characters it takes in, we come here. Okay, now here we are assured that our database is already created and we have a table called students. So let's go back to our PHP code, or maybe say to our HTML code, this code here. Let's come back here, but then in this code here, we're going to see a way of first we're going to connect. If you look at this inside this file, it showed us how to make connection to our PHP code. So what we need, our host is localhost. We are running locally on our local machine, so the host is going to be localhost. Then the username right now, when I was installing my MySQL, I mean the XAMPP, I didn't change any username of my MySQL database or the password. So I'm going to give it a username of root, and then the password I'm going to leave it null. Okay. And then the database name is going to be web_db, web_db. So the full, we can find it right here. Then okay, once that one is already done, we can go back and connect. So you know how to put in the PHP code. So we're going to add our PHP code, but this time around we're going to put it right here in our same file, so that next time anything happens, we're going to put it on top here. We said we've put our PHP code within this PHP tag here. So like this. So this is where we can add our PHP code. So we're going to add our connection variables right inside here. So we start with the connection, or we can go ahead and first say get the names. So we have the host name called local. So we have localhost as the host name. Then we have username. My username is going to be a host. Username is going to be root. And my password, I didn't specify any password, but in production, that is if once your website is already online, you have to add a password for this. And also you have to change your username to something else. So our database is called web_db. Okay, now we can go ahead and make our connection. Say connection, or just con is equals to MySQL connect, and what are we passing? We are passing the host name, our host, then our username, then our password, then lastly is our database name. Okay, so now we need to be sure that this connection has worked. And how we do that? We have to use a if statement to go ahead and do that. So we're going to use a logical operator not, and then because if maybe say this result is false, so if we invert, if we say it's not false, then this has to be true, then this block here will be valid. So let me first close this here and say if this is not true, I mean if it's false, then we're gonna call the die method and we pass a particular method here. What are we going to pass in? Which message did we pass in here? Failed to connect. No, let's not use this one here. We're going to use this one exactly. So we're going to use connection fail, which is a little bit understandable. It's when you just look at it, it's interpretable. Okay, so we're going to say connection failed, like that. Okay, maybe you display the message also, the exact error. We use the concatenator, the string operator, connection error, this one here, MySQL connect error, and then we can end it. So if that one is that, then we can go on and do something else. So that one there is first going to make connection for us in our database. If everything is fine, it's gonna run. If it's not fine, it's gonna display for us that particular error. Okay, good. So now it's time for us to read our information from the that the users are sent for us from the form. So the first thing that I want to do, I want to be sure that the method is working. Anyway, I'm not going to make all those checks right now. It's going to take us a lot of time. So I'm just going to read first name, which I'm going to say it's equals to the PHP post variable. And the name field that we have used is first name. Okay. Then we read the last name as well. I'm going to just copy this and paste it. So we're going to have our last name. Then we're going to have last name here. Then we're going to have email. And we're going to have email here. So we can maybe say first view this information that we have entered by using echo. And say our first name. And then I'm gonna use this one as well, and then it should be able to work. First name. Okay, maybe we add our break. We add the break tag there. That one can also work. Then this one can also work as well. Last name. Then you say close this dot. Then you say last name. Okay, then maybe so we add our break tag here. So either way, all of that should be able to work. Close this, and then lastly is our email. So for the email, we can also decide to leave the everything outside there, and we just say there's email. And after that, we should be able to go. I'm not going to add the break tag for this, so I don't want to move anything in the next line. If everything is fine, then we should be able to go. Now here is the time, or maybe say where we're going to start doing our insertion. So if everything is fine, we're going to create a query equals to MySQL. Okay, let's first just create a query. And this query is going to be insert into the name of our table. Remember here, insert into this and this and this, so that is what we're going to do. So we have insert into the names that we have here, 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 and then that should be it. So we're gonna have insert into students. Okay, and what are the columns that we have in our students table? We have our column ID. I've made it auto increment, so I'm not going to put in any value there, but I think here we had first name, hopefully, last name, and then email. Okay, close that, then come here for the values. So for the values, we're going to have username, I mean the first name first, first name, comma, last name, comma, and then email. So the values which you're passing must correspond to the columns that you have also specified there. So here I can go ahead and display my query, so that just in case of anything, I can see what I'm passing as the query. So our query is going to be query. Then I can add a break here. Now I think it's good to add a break tag up there. Let me just put this in its own line. So I think we can add this break tag here. Why? Because if we don't add it, let me actually just put everything like this. So you see that there is no difference. We can add a space there, or we cannot add a space. It's up to our decision. But I have to put this one in a string. I mean in a quote, because it's a string. Okay, so now we can go ahead and say results is equals to MySQL query, and it's saying our connection variable is connection, and then the query is this one here, query. Okay, then you can check if the result is correct. If results, then we're going to just display the information, and the information that I want to display is simple. Say echo new student registered successfully. Okay, we can break that, close that. Then for the else, that's in case something failed, then you're gonna say echo say failed error, failed to create new student record. Okay, then gonna break this, then I'll put in the exact error, echo the error itself, which we're going to get from MySQL error, and the error is going to come from the connection object, connection, like that. So we can close this and everything should be fine. So go ahead and save this. Okay, so we can go ahead and run our code. Okay. Let's go back to our code. But first we need to do this. We are going to use the PHP, the self. We're going to ask PHP to submit our form to this very particular file. Now I'm going to use this one here. Maybe you don't know it, but it's another syntax that we can use whenever we want to go ahead and just print in something small. So there's a new variable, a new PHP variable called self, so which we get it from the server variable again. We're going to use a small quote in this case because we're in a bigger quote, so we put PHP underscore self, okay, which goes ahead and read for us the file where we are coming from. So this one here, we are just telling PHP that from where we are coming from, you go ahead and put that as our action, or maybe say go ahead and undo the code that side. Then once that one is done, we can close our PHP tag here. Okay, so now I go ahead and save this. If I go back to the browser and refresh this page, let me see what is happening here. And if I give first name, last name, key online number 14. Okay, I need to first go ahead and first do a check. We cannot just go ahead and start running. We need to first make sure that actually this form has been submitted, because by default, since we say that we want to handle our forms here, by default PHP is always going to keep checking this one here, which is not what we want. So we want only to start reading this one if we know that somebody has clicked a submit button. Now these are again another variable from the self, which we call the from the server, from the server variable we call request method. So it's going to check for us if the method which has been used for submitting, or maybe say if a form has been submitted and they have used the method that we are waiting for, which is post. So in that case, what we need to do is we have to ask ourselves whether the method which the user has used for submitting the form is a post. So in this case, if this is true, then we are assured that the form has been submitted. If it's not the case, then we know that the form has not yet been submitted, so we don't allow PHP to go and ask this. So in that case, actually, we should make the connection after this one has been done. So it will be a best practice for us to move also all this connection and put it inside here. But for now, let's just leave it as it is. So now that one is already handled, it's out of the way, we can go ahead and refresh our code. You see now the error goes ahead and disappear. So I'm going to put my name. Let me just put a name here, say John. And then I expect to put Doe here as well. Then the email, the email is going to be johndoe@gmail.com. So we go ahead and click register. So the first name here is that the email has been picked, but I think we are missing something here. yeah, we have an error here that we need to fix, where we are displaying the email. So I think here we have everything. Here we have everything. Let's see, where is the error coming from? Our break tag is not working, so let's first remove that. Let's see the query. Insert into first name, last name, this one. MySQL connection, you have an error on line that correspond to this version, this and this and this, on line number 2, and the error insert into thrown on. What is this one here? Uncaught exception near this. Let's check where the error is from this one here. Okay, now what we have to do here, I'm going to put these values inside what we're calling a tilde. They have to be they are strings, so they have to be in a quote. Okay, these ones are strings, so they have to be in a quote. Okay, all right, that should be enough. So now we go back and refresh our code, or maybe say just start everything again. So enter the values and say June. Then you say, yeah, we don't want that, do. Then the email is john.do@gmail.com. Register. So here says new student record has been created successfully. How do we know that? We have to come back to our here in our table. If we refresh this page, we expect this table to be having some data. Now let's come back here. You see we have inserted our user information here. We have the first name, we have the last name, we have the email here already created for us. So this is basically how you go ahead and do your linking. Now in your task, you need to go ahead and style this form here to make it look nicer, and also you can go ahead and probably handle these forms here in another file instead of having it in the same file the way you want it. Okay, I think that should be enough. It's been a long one, but I hope you have picked something here and there. Go back, review the video, pause it where you want to pause it, and then go back and do the task and make sure it works. If you get an error, come back and check what we have done. If there is an error, you can come back and check what you have done until there's no another error, and then later on you can go ahead and practice with something else. Thank you. See you later. Enjoy.